What is your name and where are you from?
My name's Shauhin Alavi. I'm from San Diego, California, and I did my bachelor's at UC Davis.
What are you doing in Panama?
In Panama, I am currently assisting in a long-term field study on spider monkeys. So we're working on looking at the relationship between energetics and ovarian cycles in female spider monkeys.
What is the big question?
So the main question in this year's study is to see whether or not if female spider monkeys are in a positive or negative energy balance, whether or not that affects their ability to conceive. So their breeding cycles, they're not seasonal breeders. They can get pregnant whenever they want, but their breeding patterns tend to match fruiting cycles. So we're interested in whether or not that's an actual strategy or if they're just not able to conceive.
And what do you expect to find?
So what we expect to see is, since they're not seasonal breeders, that there is an effect on energy in their ability to conceive.
What observations are you making?
So we're doing full day focal observations, so observations on one specific female. So we have 9 females in the group that we've selected based on age and reproductive status. And then so we choose one female each day to follow for all 12 hours of her activity period. And then during that activity period, we look at everything from behavioral data to feeding data to ranging data. And we also collect feces for hormone analyses, and we're validating a new method where we take these ketone strips to measure how much energy they're burning and dip that in their urine to get results that way.
How do you collect your data?
So it's pretty involved, actually. We go out in teams of 2. We get to the monkeys before they wake up and then stay with them until they fall asleep. And so one person will collect most of the observational data. So every 3 minutes, we have a timer that goes off, and then we record exactly what behavior they're doing every 3 minutes, and we also take a GPS waypoint of exactly where the monkey is. And then we'll collect ad lib data if we see anything interesting that's not on our ethogram. So an ethogram is a sheet of behaviors that we have predefined that we're looking for. And then the second person will be taking a lot of the feces, urine, and tree data. So that person will look at sort of what species they're eating. That person will collect feces and urine if there's a sample given by the monkey, and that person will also look at sort of the dynamics of what's happening in each feeding patch. So they'll look at how many monkeys are feeding in a patch for how long, who's in there, and stuff like that.
Do you always find what you expect? And what happens when you don't get the answer you expected?
So a lot of the times, at least in my experience, when you're doing this kind of research, you don't end up finding what you expect. Most of the time, in my experience, I have not found what I expect. And usually when that happens, it just raises more questions. So if something didn't happen the way you think, you want to know why and what exactly is causing what is happening. So all it does is kind of give you more opportunities to do more research.
And how do you formulate questions?
So at least I tend to start with sort of a bigger picture question, like a broader scale question that I have in the back of my head that drives my research interests in general. And then based on that, you tend to need to do sort of smaller level questions before you can answer the larger scale questions. So you'll form like a hypothesis on certain things, and then sort of follow the scientific method like you normally would. So you'll have a hypothesis, then you come up with ways to test that hypothesis, and then you'll go about starting your research.
Awesome. How do you share your results?
How do I share my results? The common practice way to do it is once you've compiled all your data and you've finished your field work and everything like that, you'll do your analyses, and then you'll usually present that in a paper like that's published in a journal, or you'll give a talk or present a poster or something like that. So usually you'll want to have a lot of visual sort of charts and graphs and stuff for people to look at that clearly shows what you're trying to say with your data, because data can mean nothing to somebody who doesn't know what you're trying to get out of it. So you'll have some kind of chart, some kind of graph, something like that, or some kind of table, and then an explanation.
Why is this research important?
The spider monkey research?
Mm-hmm.
It can actually have a lot of implications as far as just even our own evolution, because you see some things you see things like in human athletes, for females for example, some females who are really, really over athletic and stuff like this, they tend to have problems conceiving, and interesting things happening with their own cycles and stuff like that. So if you can actually see what's happening in nature with systems that are related to us, you can start to answer bigger questions about our own system. So that's the one good thing that's one thing that a lot of people who study primates like myself tend to do in the long term. They tend to link it back to our own evolution.
And what got you interested in science?
I've always been vaguely interested in science since I was little, and there's probably a lot of that can be attributed to just my dad being really interested in science and me kind of looking up to him. And then in college, I sort of strayed from that path a lot and tried a lot of different things, and then ended up taking a sort of primatology course by accident, and then sort of rediscovered that passion for it. And then while I was still in college, I got involved with a lot of different research opportunities in different fields, and really was able to sort of focus in on what I wanted to do and pursue that.